Leading the way for border security, the new scans in Otay Mesa that may lead to a nationwide system. And new evidence tonight that the care of some of the most vulnerable patients in San Diego needs to improve. 3 reasons why that care is failing short of expectations.
We're pretty much problem solvers.
They got skills, the state-of-the-art changes to a San Diego program, helping students land jobs. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amita Sharma. It's finally over. California Department of Conservation says a natural gas well blowout that drove thousands of Los Angeles families from their homes for months has been permanently sealed. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson explains what is next for the utility company connected to the nation's largest natural gas leak.
Southern California Gas Company crews have been working to cap the well since it first ruptured in October. All indicators are showing that they've finally turned off a leak that spewed more than 2 million tons of methane into the air. A relief well temporarily cut off the flow of gas a week ago. A cement cap has permanently sealed the gusher. Bart Cruz works with the California Air Resources Board.
Air flights, on-site observations, and community monitors in Porter Ranch and surrounding communities after the leaking well was controlled, confirm that leaking gas has diminished consistent with successfully controlling the leak.
Southern California Gas Company officials say they'll continue to monitor the well and inspect more than 100 nearby wells. Residents displaced by the leak will be allowed to return home. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection is about to begin scanning the faces and documents of people leaving the country on foot. The border crossing at Otay Mesa is leading the way. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh explains how it's part of a test to find ways to create a nationwide system.
Beginning February 22nd, U.S. citizens walking across the border at Otay Mesa will have to show ID before crossing into Mexico. Foreign travelers will have to submit to a biometric scan of their face and iris.
Really, the goal is to find out if the image that was taken as the person entered the country can successfully, with minimal impact, be captured at exit, and we can somewhat close that loop of travel.
9,000 pedestrians a day cross north into the U.S. at Otay Mesa. Customs officials are under a congressional mandate to document everyone who leaves the U.S. The data could ultimately be shared with other law enforcement, though for now the information is being kept in a separate database. The test at Otay Mesa pedestrian crossing is scheduled to run until May. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Pope Francis says it's okay for women at risk of getting the Zika virus to use contraception, but he said they must not abort their fetus. He shared his thoughts today on his flight home from Mexico. The virus is known to cause rare birth defects, including abnormally small heads. The explosion of Zika cases in predominantly Catholic Latin America has motivated some governments there to advise women not to get pregnant. Abortion rights groups have also called for anti-abortion laws to be loosened. Human rights will be on the agenda when President Obama visits Cuba next month. The White House is concerned about a rise in short-term detentions in the country, but officials say they have seen progress in releasing political prisoners and expanding internet access. The president's planned visit to the island will mark the first time a sitting U.S. president has visited Cuba in almost 70 years. With the special election in Carlsbad less than a week away, it is impossible to predict the outcome of Measure A. At stake is whether to build an upscale shopping center by the Agua Hedionda Lagoon. KPBS North County Bureau reporter Allison St. John says some businesses are not publicly endorsing either side for fear of retribution.
The entire Carlsbad City Council and many movers and shakers in the community support an upscale new shopping centre on the lagoon. So what do local businesses say about the plan? Deanne Weimer of the No on A campaign says this civic support means many local businesses that don't like the plan are keeping quiet.
It is very difficult, I think, for our businesses to be bold enough to come out because no one wants to make an enemy of City Hall. And so we've seen people be shy about doing that publicly.
But Catherine Miller of the Yes on It campaign says it's also a risk for local businesses to come out in support.
There's a number that have come out publicly that have experienced somewhat of a letdown in business just because our opposition against Measure A have called for boycotts.
One business that staunchly endorses the project is the Carlsbad strawberry farms. Rather than being displaced, the popular strawberry fields would benefit with a new farm-to-table restaurant. A conspicuous opponent is Westfield Corporation, which has a mall 20 miles south in UTC that might see competition from the new upscale shopping centre.
But I think really it's going to come down to Election Day. It really is, and like who gets out, who feels passionate enough, and there's a lot of undecideds, I think, more so than I ever thought there were going to be.
What makes this surprising is that about $9 million have been spent by the developer to promote the project, while opponents have raised about $125,000 to defeat it. Special elections usually see turnout of less than 50%, but both sides predict more than half of Carlsbad voters will weigh in on this one. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
The investment company that bought the site at the proposed Gregory Canyon Landfill in North County is taking steps to prepare for construction. The neighboring Pala Band says Sovereign Capital has put up fencing and erected a sign along Highway 76. The controversial project has been in the works for more than 2 decades, and the last owners sold out before obtaining the necessary permits. Opponents argue the company cannot legally proceed until permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and the County Water Authority are obtained. California lawmakers want to close what they call a racially discriminatory wage gap in the state. A new bill would require employers to pay employees of varying ethnicities or races the same rate to perform the same job. The bill also makes a worker's education level irrelevant in how much they earn for the same job as other employees. And did you ever get in trouble in high school? It's one of the basic yes-no questions college hopefuls face on their applications. Associated Press reporter Michael Hill explains why some want those questions taken out of the college admissions equation.
It's a question hundreds of colleges ask applicants in their high schools. Has the student ever been suspended or disciplined in school? That simple question on the widely used Common Application is fueling a heated debate. Critics say it's especially unfair to minority students who are suspended at higher rates than their white peers. Some advocates want questions about discipline and arrest removed from college applications.
So we really see this as a civil rights issue, that this is, in fact, a mechanism for restricting access to higher education for students of color, because that's who's disproportionately impacted by these harsh school discipline policies.
In Syracuse, New York, the school board already voted in December to stop sharing suspension and expulsion information with colleges.
When you put a check in a box to say that I've had a lot of disciplinary issues, are you now going to be pushed out or not considered or put in another pile based on that information that we submit or have to submit? We just think that that's fundamentally unfair.
In New York City, high school senior Miaja Jawara felt haunted by a one-day suspension for a schoolyard fight in 10th grade. She cringed at having to click yes to the discipline question on her college application.
Thank you. It was like 2 years ago. I'm definitely not the same person I was then. So I feel like they shouldn't judge me off something I did when I was still so naive and so immature. Like, I've grown since that experience.
Defenders say the questions can help colleges evaluate whether a student is a safety risk. At Marist College north of New York City, Dean of Admission Kent Reinhardt said youthful mistakes do not automatically disqualify students.
I think there's a continual desire to learn as much as we can about the young people that we're bringing onto our community in this increasingly complex world. And we have every responsibility to try to learn as much as we can to make sure that we're bringing the right people to our campus.
Jawara recently got her acceptance letters, along with 2 rejection letters. She'll never know if she lost points for a wrong answer to a complex question. Michael Hill, Associated Press.
State-of-the-art renovations finished at Monte Vista High School. It now has a new computer lab, kitchen, metal shop, and auto shop. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler says when students graduate, they are ready to work.
Mechanics working on a car, changing tires. Looks like any professional mechanic's shop in town, but this is a high school. Monte Vista High School in Spring Valley just finished major renovations of its career technical education buildings. It took 7 months to fix up the 3 buildings that make up more than 32,000 square feet, including the auto shop. Teacher Michael Fleming says the mechanics of today need to be highly skilled and smart.
We're pretty much problem solvers. We don't just do oil changes. We fix check engine lights. We fix cars that aren't starting. We fix brakes that aren't working.
For the grand reopening ceremony, 19-year-old Roxana Garcia got to cut the ribbon with a plasma torch, of course. Monte Vista senior Raul Barragan has always wanted to work on cars.
Well, ever since I was little, I had a passion towards cars, and that's what I wanted to do.
Fleming says with the new equipment, their students can graduate from high school and have a job.
Oh, these skills are still employable skills, and once when you have them, you get to have the decision if you want to use it for profit or save people money or be a good Samaritan and help someone that has a problem.
Whatever these students decide to do, they'll have the skills. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
A high number of alumni from San Diego's 3 big universities are volunteering for the Peace Corps. San Diego State, UC San Diego, and USD ranked among the nationwide colleges sending the most alumni to the Peace Corps last year. UCSD sent 36 volunteers in 2015. San Diego State had 32 graduates work for the Peace Corps last year, followed by USD with 14. It was a comfortable mix of sun and clouds over San Diego today. Moody clouds remained after some light showers. This is over Mount Miguel. Molly Cochran has more on the season's temperatures in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Well, we have seen some cloud cover and some showers across Southern California over the past couple days. Here's a look over the last 6 hours, though. Things are starting to quiet down across Southern California as this area of low pressure continues to scoot eastward. And I can tell you, things are really going to be drying out as we head into the upcoming weekend and into next week. A few flight delays yesterday from San Francisco to San Diego due to the low cloud ceilings and also the wet weather. A few spotty showers earlier today, mainly in the morning hours, but as you head home from work, really shouldn't have too much in the way of delays, if anything, as we are starting to see clear skies come into the area. So we'll be under partly cloudy skies tonight across San Diego County. That does include Ramona, back towards San Diego, Oceanside, and Chula Vista, with our temperatures in the 50s. And that's pretty close to where we should be coming in for this time of year. Across the interior sections and the mountainous regions, obviously going to be a little bit cooler. Temperatures in the 30s for Ramona and right around 34 in Mount Laguna tonight. Now here's a look at our Friday, closing out the work week on a very dry and pleasant note. So just in time for any of those Friday night plans or for upcoming weekend. Things are looking very good, and we are going to be watching that warmth return into Southern California, including LA, San Diego, and Phoenix. Phoenix actually had a 90-degree day yesterday. Pretty hard to believe. That was the earliest on record. So the warmth is set to return across some sections of the Southwest. And that stormy pattern really going to be sticking farther off to our north, and that's going to stay that way well into next week. Some of those forecasting models just well into the end of February. It's looking dry across Southern California. So here's a look at the immediate coastline for the next 5 days. Temperatures get into the 70s. This time of year we should be in the mid-60s, so that is above average for this time of year. Continuing to heat up for Monday under mostly sunny skies. So get out, enjoy yourself. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. Partly sunny skies Tuesday with a high of 78. Here's a look across the interior sections, also warming up a few degrees above average. Mostly sunny skies for both Saturday and Sunday. Overnight lows in the lower 50s, so good enough to need the lighter jacket if you will be outside. Across the mountainous regions, we're getting into the mid to upper 60s Sunday and Monday, also tapping into the warmth. Temperatures drop into the 30s for the overnight hours. Across the desertous regions, we're in the 80s for the upcoming weekend with plenty of bright sunshine. 86 6 on Monday, partly sunny, staying dry into Tuesday. Molly Cochran, KPBS News.
A national report on our healthcare system says the San Diego region's hospitals have work to do to start providing more appropriate care for dying patients. Cheryl Clark with KPBS News partner iNewsSource examined the findings. She found medical providers here ranked poorly. Cheryl, who did this report and what does it say?
This week's report is from the Dartmouth Atlas, and it doesn't make San Diego look that great compared to the 305 other regions in the country that it analyzed on these three issues. First, it found far too many people with dementia are having feeding tubes inserted during their last days, and that really shouldn't happen. Also, more patients here spend time in the intensive care unit during their last 6 months than most other regions in the country. And finally, despite many hospice services available in our region, too many dying patients are not enrolled in hospice until they're 3 days away from death. And that's too late for the program to provide the help it's designed to give.
So Cheryl, why is this and what explanations did you get?
Well, Amitha, I talked to an awful lot of doctors, and they gave me three main reasons. But the one uniform thing that these doctors seem to be telling me is that that other physicians are not having these conversations with families and patients, and they're not being candid with them about realistic expectations from treatment. Second, some skilled nursing home practices might contribute to the problem. Dr. Timothy Corbin of Scripps Health suggested to me that they don't push hard enough to make sure they have advance directives from their patients, many of whom may be estranged from their families. So what happens too often is that when a medical crisis comes and the patient has to be transferred to the hospital, there's no clear instruction how aggressively doctors are supposed to keep them alive. So, he said, by default, we do aggressive care until we figure it out. And lastly, several doctors noted that San Diego's demographic may influence more aggressive end-of-life care. We have large Hispanic and Catholic populations who push for everything to be done for their loved ones. Dr. Carl Steinberg, medical director of Hospice by the Sea, said in his experience, even though that's not what's in Catholic teachings, that seems to be what a lot of people fear. If there's any way to keep mom alive, put in a feeding tube or put her on a ventilator, that's what God would want.
Cheryl Clark with iNewsSource, thank you.
Thank you, Amita.
Taking a look at cutting-edge technology inside operating rooms. In tonight's SciTech Report, we show how robots are changing the surgical landscape.
Samantha Denslow enjoys the things most active 12-year-olds do.
Roller skating, riding my bike, playing football.
But until now, her physical activities were severely limited. She was born with a debilitating spine condition. Early on, Samantha's parents were told her symptoms were nothing to worry about, but they knew different.
A lot of her pictures, her head was tilted to the side. We got mixed reactions from her doctors at the time saying it wasn't her back. At a certain point, we finally went to the specialists and said, we feel that there's something wrong. They did x-rays and realized that she has double S-curve scoliosis.
So that looks like it's going to go right.
They took Samantha to Orlando orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Raymond Wu.
So when she came to me, she had a progressing scoliosis that was getting worse as she got older. And through a series of operations, we were able to get her back straighter, but not perfect. And the goal was to be able to do one last surgery on her that would make her straight for the rest of her life. But because of all her multiple surgeries, that last surgery was going to be exceedingly difficult if we did this through the conventional ways that we do it, which is by the seat of your pants.
Instead, Dr. Wu utilized a new technology that combines 3D planning software and mechanical guidance hardware, essentially a spine surgery robot.
The Renaissance guidance system is a surgical technology that helps guide the surgeon's hand. It takes the freehand element out of the operation and adding a preoperative element as well. In order to send to my right L3 pedicle screw that I planned 48 hours ago, the software says that I need to place the device on station 7. So the guidance unit then attaches to station 7 on the platform and locks into place. So the guidance unit's moving into position now. So it's going to tell us the arm, and it's going to tell us the tools to use as well.
The system's arms and tools implant screws, which guide the rods that correct spine conditions.
These rods are what's used for scoliosis surgery. These are put into the back of the spine. And the way they're held in are with these screws. And these screws are placed into the thickest part of the bone to hold the rods still. And it's the strength of the rods and the secure fixation you get from these screws which gives you the ability to make the spine straight. Now the problem is that to put in these screws you have to do this very carefully, because if you miss, you can actually touch the spinal cord, which is this black thing here, and you can have problems with weakness, numbness, paralysis, which are devastating. So what the robot and the software does allows us to be able to actually put in these screws safely.
You're doing good. Samantha's skin is very prone to blistering and tearing, which makes the surgery even more delicate. The operation is further complicated by Samantha's past procedures.
If you look at this image here, you can, and I'm going to remove the rods. You can just barely see that there are actually shadows of rods underneath the spine, underneath the skin. And these rods are what's in her already. Our job was to remove these rods and be able to place new screws into the bone around these rods first. Perfect.
The risks of using new robotic technology didn't scare Samantha's parents.
Everything was about her, and to make her have the best quality of life as possible, which was our end goal. Because not doing anything wasn't a real option. So when it came down to him telling us that he was going to be using an assistant robotics hardware, I was all for it.
After only 4.5 hours of surgery and 3 days in the hospital, Samantha can now just be a normal kid.
I'm able to do a lot more stuff, and I'm able to go on roller coasters now, which is exciting. I'm glad it's over. If I had to, I would go through it again.
It's wonderful knowing that Samantha doesn't have to worry about her spine getting all out of whack anymore. Knowing that she can start doing more activities that she was restricted from before.
The excellent results that Samantha enjoys can now be replicated consistently for countless other patients, thanks to robotic technology like the Renaissance system.
The accuracy of the machine is over 99% in our hands, and we're able to do the same good job day after day, case after case. There's no more a concern about having your case the last case on a Friday or first case on a Monday. You actually can plan, anticipate, and predict that this is what's going to happen. And we can do this every single day with this robot.
You can see more stories like this on SciTech Now, Sundays at 5:30 p.m. here on KPBS. Switching gears for the highly anticipated California high-speed rail project. State officials have decided to switch its location. The bullet train will travel from San Jose to Bakersfield rather than from Fresno to Burbank. Rail officials also say the latest cost estimate has been reduced from $68 billion to $64 billion. The project is expected to be finished by the year 2029. In a story we brought you yesterday on data breaches, we said the electronic records of 24 million Californians were stolen last year. In fact, it was 24 million records. We regret the error.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, making sense of gambling on the presidential election and the markets that take bets. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
Opera pierced the air at the San Diego Civic Theater today. It's part of an ongoing effort by the San Diego Opera to introduce the melodramatic music form to the masses. Lunchgoers were treated to a taste of Tosca, the operatic thriller set in Rome in 1800, which was under threat by Napoleon's invasion of Italy. The free lunchtime recital is the first of 4 Opera on the Concourse programs. Each will feature pieces from the San Diego Opera's current production. Meanwhile, the San Diego Opera kicked off a $1 million fundraising campaign this week to ensure what it calls world-class productions in the coming years. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Morning Edition, demanding more regulation for ride-hailing services like Uber, the companies who got an earful from cab drivers. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.